So, The Invisible Man released this weekend, and it is a reimagining of a classic horror tale. The Invisible Man was written and directed by the visionary that created and wrote the Saw franchise, Leigh Whannell. It also is starring Elizabeth Moss, and The Invisible Man is basically about a woman who is in an abusive relationship, and right from the get go, she breaks out of it and runs away, and then 2 weeks later, the boyfriend commits suicide, and then his ghost is basically haunting her. So, how does The Invisible Man hold up? The Invisible Man is an excellent film. Now, with that being said, you need to understand that there are horror elements to it. Yes, this can be considered a horror, but The Invisible Man works best when it's a psychological horror thriller. The writing is absolutely on point and is basically perfect. The acting is extremely well done, but it's the direction. How this film is made is the star of this film. The direction is just over the top astounding. When it's a horror scene, when it wants to be a horror film, it will sink its teeth right down under your skin. When it wants to be a psychological thriller, it does the same exact thing. But the thing is, there are scenes of horror elements, and then there are other scenes with psychological elements, and it just works very well with transitioning to each single genre that it's trying to be. There's some humor in it, though there's not too much. But honestly, this film works best when you look at the acting, the writing, and direction. There are some violent sequences. It's not really an action epic or anything. Like I said, it's a psychological horror thriller, but there definitely are some violent sequences. And honestly, as far as action sequences go, these are top notch. These are already the best violent sequences I've seen in 2020. They are extremely well directed, edited, everything. You can follow every single punch, even from an invisible dude. But another thing in the story is that there are a couple twists, and I'll be honest, I actually predicted one part of the ending about 20-25 minutes by the end. But that doesn't mean that this is a bad film. It's not. This is actually an excellent film. The Invisible Man, you can just tell that they had so much care built into making this film. You can just see it every single second inside of the film that they were trying to go for a masterpiece. And while it's not exactly a masterpiece, it will hold up extremely well for the next years to come. There is one downside I have to this film, and I'm not going to do any spoilers. All I'm going to say is it involves an Uber driver, and it involves the boyfriend's home, and that's all I'm going to say. They didn't reveal many things. They kind of wanted to keep you guessing, but then at the same time, the question just kind of pondered in your head, but how did none of that break each other off? But otherwise, outside of that plot flaw, The Invisible Man is absolutely exceptional. Leigh Whannell is definitely an excellent writer, not just a guy that likes gore. He actually takes storytelling seriously. The narrative in this film is amazing. The direction is so well filmed. The horror elements aren't even just on screen. It's the music behind it. It's the elemental environment inside of shot for shot. Okay, this film is just gripping. It is gripping. That's about the only word that I can say about it. As far as a psychological horror thriller, it's gripping. It will grip the living hell out of you. Honestly, it will. The intro started off extremely well too. It was basically an intro of her trying to just scheme to get out of his house, and the way they did it was basically, for the majority of the part, you had to sit there and watch a woman trying to sneak away from her abusive boyfriend in the middle of the night, and most of the time they kept music and sounds off, and that's where this film shined. When there isn't music, when there isn't a score, when there isn't a soundtrack, this film shines at just the spectacle of having to hear noises, and that was the horror of this film. There are a couple jump scares, but the way that they're implemented into the film, I think they're very effective and well done. I personally am still not a fan of jump scares, but the way that Leigh Whannell put them into this film, it worked for the film of what it is. It worked very well. So, my overall rating for The Invisible Man is a 9 out of 10, and definitely go see this. Thank you.